This video will demonstrate how to replace the top drive shaft roller assembly on the McDonald's toaster HCT-5H toaster. Some basic tools you want to have on hand: screwdriver, slip joint pliers, 11/32 nut driver, 11/32 open end wrench, small wire cutter, black Sharpie, a 3/32 hex key, and a 2-jaw puller. Turn power off, unplug the power cord from the power source, and remove the top 2 screws. On older models, you need to loosen up the bottom screws. With the service panel open, the top drive front roller assembly is located in this area here. It contains the idler and the top drive sprocket. Several components need to be removed, which will be explained shortly. Open the compression side door by unlocking the latch. Swing the door open, completely remove it from the hinge, and set aside. Use temperature resistant gloves in case the toaster is warm or hot during servicing. We need to release tension on this top rear idler roller. Lift on this metal bracket up, and with your thumbs pull the hinge bracket away to free both mechanisms. To remove the top belt, we need to release tension. Push the roller in and down into the guide at both ends. Go ahead. With the tension released, as you can see, the belt has slack. Carefully rotate it as you pull it away from the toaster in a rotational motion. Set the belt aside. Use an 11/32 nut driver and remove the 3 hex nuts. Remove the retainer and remove the ball bearing from the shaft. Okay. It's a pressed on design. In some cases, if it's stubborn, you can incorporate the use of a 2-jaw puller to extract the ball bearing from the shaft. Remove the old ball bearing and the 2 nylon washers. The kit does include an extra ball bearing to replace at this end. At this stage, remove the connectors on the mortarboard. There are 6 connectors. This yellow one, red, these 2 white ones, this large yellow, and in the rear corner, a small yellow connector. Okay. Using an 11/32 open-end wrench, preferably one with a ratchet, locate and loosen the 4 hex nuts located at the bottom beneath the motor. 2 on the left and 2 on the right. Once they are loosened, complete the removal using your thumb and your index finger. With the 4 hex nuts removed beneath the motor, in the rear of the toaster, remove the 2 black caps on the high limits. Then proceed and remove both brass nuts so we can swing the high limits out of the way and allow further access. Okay. With the high limits detached, pull them in towards the machine Lift the motor off the mounting studs. Disengage the drive motor from the drive chain and carefully set it aside, being careful not to damage surrounding components. As you can see now, there's visible access to the components. Remove the drive chain carefully and set aside. Up here is the idler roller. Here's your top drive sprocket. Here's your spring-loaded tensioner. This is your drive sprocket for the bottom roller. In order to remove these 4 hex nuts that secure the drive roller to the firewall, we need to remove the lower drive sprocket, removing its set screw using a 3/32 hex key. Once removed, we can remove these lower 3 hex nuts that allow the spring tensioner to be completely removed. With the lower sprocket removed, be careful not to lose the set screw. Carefully set aside. Use an 11/32 nut driver and remove the lower 3 hex nuts. Remove the spring tensioner completely from the toaster and set aside. Use an 11/32 nut driver and remove the 4 outer hex nuts. With the 4 hex nuts removed, use your right hand, support the drive shaft, and then slide it out towards you. Set aside. Take the new roller assembly and carefully feed it through as straight as possible. Continue feeding the roller through as you support the opposite end. Ensure the roller is flush with the firewall before you install the 4 hex nuts. Also confirm that these 2 hex nuts are vertically above and below one another as shown. Lift the front door. Locate the spring-loaded tab, pull it away to dislodge the door, set aside. Take the drive roller and ensure its position within the center of this frame so that it's straight across. While supporting the drive roller at the opposite end in position, install and tighten the 4 hex nuts. Verify that the mounting bracket is flush with the firewall and that there are no gaps around. Also verify these 2 hex nuts to my left are vertically above and below one another, and the word top appears etched on the idler bracket. With the drive roller in position, install the 2 nylon washers. Install the new bearing supplied with the kit and press it over the shaft until flush. Install your retainer and install the 3 hex nuts. And tighten. With the drive roller secured at both ends, spin it and ensure there are no mechanical binds or hesitation. Lastly, verify that there is a gap approximately 3/16 of an inch between the wall and the beginning edge of the roller. Next, reinstall the spring-loaded tensioner. Ensure that the spring mechanism is working. And secure with the 3 hex nuts. With the spring tensioner bracket installed and secured with the 3 hex nuts, rotate the bottom drive shaft by reaching around the front of the machine and rotate it until you notice the pre-drilled hole in the shaft. Take a black Sharpie and make a slight mark at the end of the shaft to coincide with the location of the set screw dimple. This would allow reinstallation of the drive sprocket and location of the set screw in the dimple. Reinstall the lower drive sprocket without the set screw. Install the set screw on your 3/32 Allen key and locate the dimple hole in the shaft with the hole in the sprocket and tighten the set screw until snug and tight. Pre-install the drive chain as shown. It should match this diagram. Reinstall the motor assembly over the bottom 4 studs. However, engage the motor sprocket into the chain until completely engaged. Okay. Using a telescopic mirror and a flashlight, reconfirm that the drive chain is correctly engaged over all the sprockets and their teeth. Idler, top drive, spring, lower drive, and obviously the motor sprocket. Okay. Reinstall the 4 hex nuts onto the bottom 4 studs. Do not tighten, just lightly finger tight. With the 4 hex nuts pre-installed but not tightened, reconfirm once again that the drive chain is correctly routed and engaged with all the sprocket teeth. Then compress the spring tensioner to the left and slide the motor bracket to the left, which will tighten the tension. Keep doing this until the motor chain deflection is approximately 1/8 of an inch. Once the motor tension is achieved, maintain the motor in position. Do not release it, and using your 1132 wrench, tighten at least 2 nuts to prevent the motor from sliding to the right, which will loosen the tension. With the 4 lower hex nuts tightened, reconfirm the drive chain tension once again. Deflection in this area should be approximately 1/8 of an inch, no more than 3/16 of an inch. In this case, we have approximately 1/8 of an inch. Reinstall the 2 high limits and resecure both of them with the brass nuts and reinstall their plastic cap. With the high limit secured, reinstall the mortarboard connectors from the rear, working towards the front. In the rear right corner is a small yellow connector with a black and white wire. Secure it over the 3 pins. Next, reinstall the motor winding connector on this first pin. Secure. Next, reinstall the contactor connector and the fan connector Okay. Reinstall this red connector. Notice the first wire is brown. It must line up with the first pin here where the white arrow is shown. If you're off a pin, you will burn out the board. Lastly, reinstall the tachometer motor connector. Reconfirm all wire connectors are correctly seated on the motor board. Also verify that the high limit wires are firmly secured and their capillary tubes are not touching any exposed electrical terminal. If necessary, reconfigure as needed. Reconfirm that your rear top idler roller is still in the compressed state at both ends to facilitate belt reinstallation. The belt can be installed in any direction. Start at one end and gradually rotate it as you push it towards the opposite end. With the belt installed, pop the roller up to spring back at both ends. Reconfirm from the front side and the back side that the belt is correctly in position. Then relatch the mechanism by pushing this bracket up, engaging the bracket on the lower and on the upper, and then push in. Reconfirm that the latch is correctly supporting the lower mechanism and the upper mechanism and fully engaged. Next, reinstall the side door by reinstalling it over the hinge. Before closing the panel, ensure the connectors on the main board are not disconnected or damaged. Make sure all wiring is away as you close the panel and secure with the necessary screws. Okay. Before installing the door, reconfirm once again that the Teflon belt is properly engaged on the front roller. Take the front door and engage it on the upper pin. And then engage it on the right side by pulling the clip in to engage. Close the door, ensure it's secured and hinges. Plug the power cord in and test the unit for proper operation with product.